And this is going to be, it's going to be a lot of guesswork on my part because I've never used this stove for this canner. So on my one at home, I know exactly how long to do it for. What I'm looking for here is the gauge will not start rising because we don't have the weight on it yet. Okay, this is the petcock where the weight's going to go. And right now we're going to start seeing steam come out of there as it heats up. Okay, once we see that steam come out completely, like not just a little puff here and there, we want it to be exhausting steam completely. We're going to start timing it and let it exhaust that steam for 10 minutes. Okay, then we're going to drop the 10-pound weight on that petcock. Okay.
Is this all in the instructions for the machine?
Yes, yeah. And it is actually in your instructions on your step-by-step, the very first handout that you have. It's going to vary a little bit based on the canner that you have. So you want to go by those, you know, both of those. But they're all going to have some way to exhaust steam, okay? And whether you're using a dial or the weight, you know, that's going to be different. If it's one that has just the dial and no weight, that petcock is one that you screw down, okay? So it operates a little bit differently, but you still want to exhaust the steam for 10 minutes on any of them. So, and the reason for doing that, that's a relatively new development. So when I said don't use old canning books, that's something that just came about in the last, I'd say maybe 10 years. It used to be, once steam started coming out, you started timing, 10 minutes. Now they want the steam to be, they don't want just puff, 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 puff. They want the steam to be fully barreling out of that petcock, and then you start timing 10 minutes. Because they want to make sure that all of that excess steam is out of there, everything's totally heated up to the same temperature before you drop your weight on there. Okay? This one's really nice. My old one had just the weight, no dial. So you never really knew where it was. What I like about this one is, although I don't rely on this one, once I drop that weight on there, I can kind of watch it come up to pressure, and I know when it's just about at 11 pounds, so I know I need to start listening, because you'll start hearing the weight rock on it, okay? And that has to do with the timing once that rocking starts, okay?
So when you're using this, how do you know it's 11 pounds or 13 or 14?
Okay, on this one here, you see all the holes that are around the edges, okay? Each hole has a corresponding number on it. Like this hole here has a 5, okay? So that's 5 pounds of pressure if you put it on that way, okay? Over here is the 10, so when I put this weight on here, this is the hole I'm going to use, okay? And that's going to, the pressure's going to build up to 10 pounds, and when it gets to 10 pounds, it's going to rock a little bit. And it's going to let a little bit of steam out, and that's what keeps that 10 pounds of pressure inside that canner, okay? There's times, like, I may have that problem on this stove since I don't really know it. There's times when it just keeps rocking constantly. Ideally, with this canner, it's supposed to rock once every 3 to 4 minutes, once to twice, I think it is, every 3 to 4 minutes. On this stove, it'll probably rock quite a bit until I get the temperature adjusted because the electric is so different compared to gas. That's okay, as long as it keeps rocking. I've had some people in my last class that were terrified of pressure canners because they had a grandmother who blew one up, and today's pressure canners really can't blow up. They have overpressure plugs that they will blow that overpressure plug before they would actually blow up.
No, I mean, how do you do it off of a...
Off of there?
Yeah, 11, 12, or 13, or 14 instead of a 10 or a 15.
Okay, you see the difference in that? That table 1 is for the dial gauge. Okay. So you would actually watch. So on this canner, I have the dial, but I only kind of use that as a guideline. I'm going to use the weight. So I'm using table 2. Okay. On the dial gauges, like for me, I would use 11 pounds. Okay.
So how would you adjust it if you only had the weight? How would you adjust it for elevation?
In your chart.
You'd have to have a dial gauge?
No, no, down here in your chart.
Oh, it would just be 10 off.
Yeah, you would use the 15 pounds.
From looking at recipes, most of the recipes are at 10 pounds and some are at 15, but I've never seen one at 11 or 12.
Well, I mean, if you're using a dial, yeah, if you're using a dial, it'll be different. So, but yeah, if you're using a dial and that's all you have, that's okay. But please get it tested. Okay. because they can go bad. And those dial gauges, you can actually replace those. If you go into, like the Ace Hardware stores, they have dial gauges for a lot of the canners. But like I said, there's times that they do go bad, and then my mom has my grandmother's, and my grandmother used it for years. I mean, ever since I can remember, she's used that same canner. And that dial is right on the nose. I mean, because she had it tested, and it's fine, and it's that old. So, but they can go bad. So this will never go bad. It will always be 10 pounds of pressure if I use the right mold. So, okay. Any other general questions that you can think of? Are you overwhelmed?
On a canner like this, if you only have like 6
Mm-hmm.
jars and 6
jars,
it'll do just fine.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, you can use
this.
Yeah, you can. I try to get as many jars in there as I can, because obviously, that's going to save energy. If you're only, but I have done 3 jars. I mean, I've, made something that's all it made, and I have done that. I don't like to do that. In this instance, if I had the amount of soup where I thought it was going to be possible that I wouldn't have enough to fill the canner, I probably would have made some extra chicken broth and done that too. Chicken broth may not necessarily need 75 minutes for a quart, but it isn't going to hurt it because it's only chicken broth.
So you always do it to the highest,
Yes, yes,
whatever's in, like if you have
Right.
4 different kinds,
right,
you always do it to the highest.
absolutely, yes. Even if you're mixing things, now this is a soup, so it's a little bit different. But say if you did mixed vegetables and you were going to can jars of mixed vegetables, because you don't have all that liquid in there, you're going to have it actually full of vegetables. Corn is the one I think that takes the longest, so that's how you would time it for the corn.
Do you know why they want you canning the seafood just in pints or half pints?
I don't know. I saw that on there too, and I've seen that in all of my books, and I really don't know what the reasoning for that is. But yeah, all of the books have that in. I don't know if this one has anything in
A
here.
good day, what I would think, is because they expect some of it to go bad, so they figure that that way it'll be less likely that you'll lose some of it. If you had a whole
That's a good
quart
question.
and it all went bad, that's a lot of fish.
Yeah.
But if you do it in small amounts,
Let's see what they say.
that's just my guess.
Would, there's another question.
Mhm.
Seafood, is that freshwater and or salt water?
Let's see. In here, they just say seafoods are low acid. Then they have clams, crab, fish, blue mackerel, salmon, steelhead, trout. So there you have fresh and saltwater. And other fatty fish except tuna. And then, they have except tuna on all this, which is kind of interesting.
You got steam coming out now.
And they don't have, okay,
Yeah.
so we have, can you guys see that?
Yeah, it's just coming out steady. Who's the timer man?
10 minutes.
Right, good morning.
You said the acid, depends on the acid.
Uh-huh.
So, assume there is a soup, low acid soup
Low acid?
recipe or something.
Yeah.
You can put it in a water bath.
No. No, in your water bath, you only want to do high acid items, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Your fruits are high in acid. Pickles have a lot of vinegar in them, so those would be high acid. Some tomato products, you have to be careful with tomatoes. You want to follow a good recipe book, a good canning book, because you do have to
I
emphasize
meant
it.
it, I said opposite.
Uh-huh.
Say, if you make a tomato soup,
Okay,
you can do water bath.
in water bath. If you don't use other vegetables, that might make it low acid. And in fact, I think there is a tomato.
Probably need to throw your weight on there. I bet you're
No,
gonna turn that down, aren't you?
we need 10 minutes. It needs to exhaust for 10 minutes.
Oh, exhaust for 10
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
Let's see here. I think that one of these, yeah, spiced tomato soup. Let's see what it is. Okay, in here, they use it's a spiced tomato soup. They use tomatoes, onion, celery, sweet red peppers, carrots, and then your seasonings, some brown sugar. Ooh, it's a sweet tomato soup, and some salt. And it does not give you the option for water bath, only pressure canning. So that's why it's important, if you're doing something that you're not sure, first find a stated recipe. If you're not sure, like in that instance, if you looked at that recipe and you weren't sure, well, can I water bath it or not? I would pressure can it, because at least that way you're safe.
Okay, but you can pressure can everything.
You can. The fruits that really don't need it, they'll get really soft in a lot of cases. So they don't really need it. Yeah, that's why water bathing's better. And pickles would get really soft, and you want pickles crunchy, as crunchy as possible. But tomatoes, yeah, if you can, like, I've done them both ways. I prefer the water bath ones because the pressure canned ones get a little bit different texture. But some people I know like them pressure canned. So it's very subjective as to what you like. So I'm gonna back that down just a tad because the reason I'm kind of, it's kind of guesswork on this stove, but if it comes up to pressure too fast, it's too hard to get it back down to where I need it to be. So I kind of go a little bit slow on it. You don't really want to make abrupt changes once you got your weight on there and you started the canning process. On an electric stove, that's what makes it a little more difficult. If you go down too far, you can it'll stop rocking that certain number of rocks it needs to do per minute. And then you got to start all over again with timing, okay? And that high heat, low heat, or back to high heat, that kind of going back and forth like that can actually force your contents out of your jars. So you want to try and keep it as steady as you possibly can. It's always going to be a little bit of guesswork, when you get a new stove or a new canner or whatever the case may be. The recommendation is if you get a new canner and you want to try it out, can some jars of water, because you're not really going to ruin anything. But at least that way you'll get to learn your stove and your canner. That makes it a little bit easy. And you get to learn the process doing that too. So that's a good thing to do. Or chicken broth. Chicken broth is pretty easy to do.
Guess that'd be a good way to store water.
Yeah, probably. Probably. Okay. You use timing, right? Okay.
I was reading a book and it said that if you empty a jar, you should put water in it.
Yeah, I've
You
read
know,
that too.
yeah.
Or like you said, like if you only have 3 jars of something and you need something else you want to fill it, do some jars of water. That would be a good way to keep it on the shelf. So, canning used to be that when my mom did it, back when I was a kid, I remember spending the entire weekend helping can, and I swore to God I was never going to do this when I got old enough to do my own thing. So, same way with gardening, and now I live and breathe gardening. But when we used to do that, canning things, first of all, they were hard to find, and when you did find them, they were dirt cheap because nobody was doing it. Everybody was buying it at the grocery store. Now canning is on an upswing, and man, you pay dearly for these lids. And I have 2 different jars here too. I didn't talk about that, but there's a regular mouth, and a narrow mouth, and a wide mouth. I try to do everything that fits easily in the narrow mouth jars. Only because these lids are cheaper. Jars I think are a little bit cheaper, but the lids are a lot cheaper to buy at a narrow mouth. But the wide mouth is really nice, like if you're doing peach halves or something like that, it's easier to get in the wide mouth.
Or banana peppers.
Or the chicken.
And the largest banana peppers, I use the wide mouths.
Yeah. So, and this one here kind of is a little bit tapered. Yeah, this one. You can actually buy pints that are tapered like this, and these are really handy for doing chicken breasts and things like that, because they don't have that little bit of a neck in there. So, I do also freeze in these jars, because they're used to be known as can and freeze. Yeah, it says freezer safe on them. But you have to be careful. You don't want to put your lid on tight if you're putting something, liquid in there. And if you drop them, they're gone. So, because they're pretty fragile, but I do use them for that.
Where do you get the bulk lids?
The bulk lids I got from, this last time I ordered them, I got them from Lehman. Have you ever heard of Lehman? Yeah, I got them from there. They have gone up dearly in price. Last time I bought the regular lids, it's a sleeve of 345, I believe. They don't come in a box or anything, it's a paper sleeve that they come in. And they look like this. I like them because there's no writing on them. You know, I don't really care what brand they are. I don't need to know that when they're sitting in my pantry. I want to know what I have in them. So I like a lot of space to write on. So that's what I like about them, is they don't have any brand on. But I think the 345 regular, I believe, ran around $42, and then plus I had to pay shipping. Now they're like 60, yeah. In fact, they were the same price as the wide mouth last time I priced the bulk ones, which I was like, are you nuts? But I've got enough for right now. I don't need any right now, but it is handy to have them in bulk, and I love the fact that they don't have any writing on. You do a lot of canning. I mean, that's worth its weight in gold. Any other questions on general stuff or about the
One thing I
process?
was gonna mention, this book I got at Walmart last summer. This is the newer version, the new look to the one that
They
she,
changed the cover, the
What you
picture on the cover a lot of times.
and it was over in the candy section.
What did it run you, do you remember?
You know, I don't.
I think it runs around $8 to $10.
I was thinking that it was 7 something.
Okay, because this one's $8.95,
This one doesn't say on there.
is what it said, so, but I'd probably bought it on Amazon.
Are you gonna show us how to can that cheesecake?
The cheesecake, that does look good, doesn't it? I don't think I'd want to can it though. But, I mean, you guys can look at these books if you want to look at them. This one has a wealth of information, and there's a lot of recipes in here. And then that one, this one just doesn't have pretty pictures. That one's kind of got all my
Do
things
you
I
need them
printed
now?
off.
Or
Do I need what?
do you need them right now?
Nope. I have a lot of extra recipes I stick in there, so
Okay.
We've been getting
but
ours.
if anybody wants to see those.
Carter, what's that nursery outside of, Mitchell Hardware? Where we got our topsoil.
Garden Adventures. Garden Adventures it's called.
Yeah, they have a combination of like topsoil and compost. That's what we have been.
Yeah, it's down on, isn't it 14? Yeah, it's out on 14, maybe 7 miles.
Oh, I don't even know. It's a
Nice
nice little place though.
It's about 7 miles. Out.
We was there last year, we hadn't been there. And then next to Hardware, it has some compost and stuff, and I couldn't remember if they had topsoil or not.
They don't have the mix. What we got last year was they took a scoop of the compost and a scoop of the topsoil and mixed it with the bucket and then threw it in the truck. And that was nice because I didn't have to mix it. You know, I could just shovel it in the beds. So I like that. So, I don't know, I don't think Next to Hardware does
They
that.
said they thought that place was going out of business.
Oh, really? Hope not.
No,
Garden Adventures? I hope not. That's one of my favorite places I like to go.
We're done, 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. So I have my 10 pounds. So now is when you'll see the gauge start to creep up. Okay.
What's the highest number on that gauge?
The highest number is 30, and it says caution. You don't want it right
Red
there.
zone.
Yeah, you don't want it up there.
Now, when you start your 70-minute,
Um,
or 75-minute,
Once this comes up to temperature or pressure, you'll hear it start to rock. That's when we'll start timing. So,
How do you know you're not running out of water inside? You're not looking at that.
it's all self-contained. I have in my old canner. I said my gasket went bad. It would drip. You know, as it was coming up, the temperature had it tight, and I had the lid locked in, and it was dripping. And
Well, but you're boiling water off, steam's coming out, you're boiling water off,
Right.
how do you know you're not running out?
yeah, and on that one, what happened was it was on there and it was rocking just fine, and all of a sudden it stopped rocking. And then I didn't change any, and I was like, okay, something's not right. And I stopped it, and decided I think I recanned that batch. I think I was disgusted, but I think I recanned it. When I opened the lid, all my water had dripped out. And if I hadn't have stopped it when I did,
Yeah,
I mean,
burn up.
you run the risk of, either doing that or breaking your jars, because
Yeah.
your jars will get so hot.
And it all explode,
So you don't wanna put your stuff in the canner and then go out to the garden, okay? You wanna kinda hang around where it is. I like.
Forget about it, come
Yeah,
back 3 hours later.
yeah. I clean up the kitchen because I always make a mess. You know, I do any number of things, but I stay within earshot. I always want to know what's going on with it. And I'll go by and look at it every now and then. But you'll get so used to hearing the rocking that you know immediately if something's wrong. Because my old one is also a weighted canner. It does not have a gauge at all. So I didn't have that, you know, kind of a guideline to go by. But I mean, it was rocking just fine, and all of a sudden it just stopped rocking. And I knew something wasn't right, so I shut it down. And you can't open it immediately because you got to remember it's under pressure, you know. So I just had to wait for it to come down, and when I did open it, it had boiled dry. So I've not had that problem with this one. I have had more than enough water in this one because it, you know, it doesn't really drip or anything like that like my other one did.
And
So.
your other one, what kind of, is it like a rubber gasket?
Yeah, it's a rubber gasket. It's a Miro canner. Back when they were made in the USA, they're not anymore. But they were. And that one holds almost 10 pints. I say almost because if you use a wide mouth, you'll only get 9 in there because they have they're flared, so you can't fit as many on one layer, and then it'll only hold 7 quarts also. But it's about maybe that high. And you can.
Harvest gold.
Huh?
Mine's harvest gold.
Harvest gold. Oh, really? I didn't even know they made them like that.
Is it gold or is it that green? It's one or the other.
Yeah, I didn't even know.
Avocado green or harvest gold.
Yeah, my mom did an
Same
avocado
age.
green stove. Yeah. The 70s.
Yep. What were we thinking?
Mhm.
All the Tupperware colors. Okay.
Yeah. The 70s were my least favorite era. Yeah. Remember when we were looking for houses, remember going into some houses and they had the 70s shag with the gold and brown and orange, and I was like, oh. That was my least favorite era for colors. So, but it's kind of going up pretty steady here, so it's not doing too bad, so I'm going to leave the temperature there right now. It's at about 4 pounds right now, so.
My shoestrings run tight, so don't.
Oh, that's yours. Anybody else have any questions?
No, but I tell you what, we could just shoot these books.
Okay.
We wanted to
Shoot
send
them.
Yeah.
You can tell which ones I use the most because they're the ones that are most wore out. And you guys, if you don't want to stick around for the unveiling, you don't have to. It's totally up to you. In my last one that I did, I had some people that stayed until the very end, until we took everything out of the canner. So that's up to you.
I have Russian.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Black bread of the machine. Did you see any other recipes you like? Oh, yeah.
So which one do you like the best? This one here?
Who, me?
Yeah. Or is
Thi-
it this one?
No, this is my favorite. This is my second. Well, I don't know. It's a toss-up between those two. This is the one that I use the least. So,
She like this blue book of
yes.
ball blue book.
Yeah, because that has all the basics. So,
And this is just the newer version of that same with the new. They change out the cover every once in a while.
if you don't want to stay for the end, what we're going to do is when it comes up to pressure, it's going to start rocking. And we can start our timing. We're going to time it for 75 minutes, and that's what's going to be very boring. Because we're going to sit here and look at each other for that amount of time. Once that time is up, then we're going to shut down the heat, and then it's got to cool down on its own. You cannot cool it. Like if you're familiar with, is anybody familiar with using a pressure cooker? You can quickly bring that temperature and pressure down by running it under water. You never want to do that with a canner, okay? you run the risk of your liquid coming out of your jars, and then it's gonna compromise your seal. So you have to let it come down to 0 on the dial naturally. Once it does that, in this particular canner, I move the weight just a little bit and exhaust the rest of the steam very slowly. Now you need to read the book on your canner because my old canner did not work that way. Okay, so there are going to be some differences there. On this particular one, I exhaust that excess steam very slowly. And then I will take the weight off and let it sit for 5 minutes before I open it. Okay. Then I go ahead and open it, and there's going to be a lot of steam, so open it away from you. Okay. That's when I use my jar lifter, and I will take one of my towels and set it on this rack over here. And keep the jars level when you take them out of the canner. Okay. You don't need to tighten the bands that are on there. Okay. You just
No, they
literally.
haven't sealed yet, right?
They have not sealed
Yeah,
yet.
they haven't sealed, that's,
Right.
so you wanna keep them nice
Right.
and level.
So you want to keep them level, because if you don't, you can get your liquid underneath your lid. So you bring them over to your towel-covered rack or whatever it is that you want to set them on. They're going to be very hot. Generally with soups, they continue boiling for an hour afterward. So they're still going to be really hot. In that period of time, you'll start hearing the lids and they'll make a popping sound. Okay? That's when they're sealed. But you want to leave them sit, and generally, yeah, and it's usually pretty loud. But the interesting thing is the wide mouth, I generally don't hear the wide mouth seal, but I do hear the narrow mouth for some reason. But you want to leave them sit on that area for 24 hours without touching them. Once that 24 hours is up, that's when you can take the bands off, and you can test them for seal by picking them up with the lid, okay? Not before the 24 hours is up. Okay, if you can do that, you've got a good seal. And the other thing is, did you come up and see the difference in these lids? Okay, the other thing is it's not gonna have that little indentation that you can push down, okay? But that's the test right there.
Yeah, but if it's not sealed, that's when you eat.
Yes, if it's not sealed, you wanna stick it in the fridge and eat it within the next couple of days, okay? Because even I've done a lot of canning, and there are times when, something doesn't seal. I mean, maybe it had a little bit of fat under the lid or something if you're doing a soup, that can happen. Or even just a little, like I've had a little piece of fruit or something if I'm doing fruit, something just ends up
And
under
with
the
jellies,
lid.
you know how syrupy they are, so you really want to wipe
Yeah.
off. I've done a lot of jellies, wipe off the rim good, because you need a little dab of jelly or something on there.
Yeah. And then at that point, once you've taken that ring off of there, you can take your jar and you want to get a wet rag and clean off the rims of your jar, okay? You want to make sure that they're nice and clean when you put them away. Because things like your fruits and stuff like that, a lot of times they'll end up sticky, because they're sticky all over the kitchen when you're doing fruit, it seems like. But you want to make sure you get that rim nice and clean, because if you don't, that you can get mold, and then it can actually affect your seal on your jar. And then you can, I have literally set them in a sink full of water and just literally wash the jars if they're really bad. Because you will not hurt the seal, okay? And then you just take them and set them on your shelf, wherever you're gonna keep them. So, it is a good idea once in a while to just go and make sure your lids are still all sealed. And you generally don't want to, you don't want to put them in the cabinet and then set another one on top, okay? The reason being is if this jar would come unsealed, this jar here is going to keep that lid on there, and it can actually start growing mold and actually seal that lid, but it's not really sealed, okay? And you don't want that to happen, all right? So you don't really want to stack them, okay? If you have to stack them, you could put like a thin board or something on this layer, and then set your others kind of diagonally. But it's not recommended. Most of your books tell you not to do it. So if you have enough space, it's best not to. And this is about to start. We're at about 9.5, almost 10 pounds.
I'll film it until it starts rocking or something.
Yeah.
Shut it off.
Yeah, and you'll get to, once you're listening to it, you'll get to hear what it's doing, and you'll recognize it. And you can see, if you can't see it from there, you can see the moisture coming out from under the weight that's on there.
Well, this is an easy prepper thing. Instead of buying freeze dried.
Yeah.
The only bad thing is if we had an earthquake.
Yeah.
If we had an earthquake, it's not a good thing.
That wouldn't be good.
Yeah. I'm gonna let it actually start rocking for real before we start timing.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming.
All right.
This is a long
Good
workshop.
luck.
It's a good one, but it's a long one,
Well,
yeah.
and we would have planned for that, but it only took an hour into.
Oh,
did it?
Otherwise.
that's my fault, I'm sorry.
Are
you guys on
Okay,
Meetup?
Sam.
You are? Okay, well then, what's your name? Sarah, I'm Sam, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, yeah.
Sam.
We can make sure we get your info.
Start 75 minutes.
35, okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Uh-huh.
That was great
Bye-bye.
to be back. Thank you.
Now, Denise, we want to do a thing like that, but I have it.
Ooh, I can only do, one hour, 15 minutes, okay.
Even at the, like,
1 hour, 15
we have a little outside, a lot of people have a little outside burner, a gas burner or something. I've known people that will do that.
You know, this is a good cover, but it's an auto
I'm
box.
looking at people that think.
Okay, great.
All right.
And they have a clip for them, but they don't know.
Now the fun part, wait, yeah. Yes, you can see it over there. Yeah. And this is, I'll probably have to back that temperature down a little bit.
Okay, so you get to this point and then you just back off the temperature until it quits puffing quite so much. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
But you want to keep it at 15 or whatever it is, 10
Yeah,
pounds.
yeah.
So you watch the gauge so you know you're in the range of where it's supposed to be. And then once it starts puffing, you just back it off some. And that's what you're trying to maintain.
Yeah, and it's a little bit difficult.
A little puff here and there, but not too much, because the more it puffs, the more steam, the more water it boils out. Yeah. You don't want it to boil out all the water. So you just keep backing off until it puffs every now and then you just leave it at that. Yeah. Then how long? 75 minutes? That's quite a bit. But that's for soup. So what's your normal range that you're normally?
You know, it really varies. If you're doing meat, it's 90 minutes.
90 minutes for meat?
Corn, I think, is the one vegetable that has the longest time.
Yeah. Couple hours or something.
No, I think
I hear a lot about you
that's,
guys.
I want to say that's 75.
Making the good stuff, I promise. No,
And then
yeah, I'm so glad you
lower one might be 40, 50 minutes. Or
Yeah, like I think the green beans are,
oh my God, it's 12:30.
Kind of watching.
boy, I'd have to look it up to be sure, but
30, 40
yeah, it's not near.
So you can do anywhere possibly from 30 minutes up to a couple hours. Yeah.
David, you want to go to the sanitation thing in Ava on Tuesday night? Are you guys going?
I wanted to go to that. You told me about that. I wanted to. I can't
Oh, they have something every Tuesday night.
Oh, they do. Okay.
It's a long drive.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
It'd
yeah.
make a lot better, a lot more sense. Yeah, if you want to ride together or something, we can go on down, okay. So you just keep inching it down until,
Yeah, especially on electric.
so you get kind of a feel for where it should be.
Here, my gas stove, I don't have to, once I get it, I don't have nothing.
Yeah, right, right.
And that's there, because our cars were.
Right, you should.
Thank you, Denise. As usual, you're awesome.
Well, I
You
think I
could
talked
present-
to you on that.
You can present to 1,000 people.
No, I mean, you covered all the stuff.
This is a long one.
There's a lot of stuff to do with canning, really, but it's really not that difficult. You
No,
just,
it's
you
really
really need a good canner like this, which
And
we
you
got
really
the
can't
same
cut
thing,
corners.
but it's the smaller
You know,
one.
I mean,
And the smaller one's just fine, because the bigger you get, the more you really want to can at one time.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep from wasting energy.
Right.
So, yeah, Marie got the small one, but other than that, it looks just like that. And that's a great canner. It's made in
Oh, I love it.
Wisconsin,
yeah.
and it's heavy.
It's actually, so it is American made.
Yeah, well, there's another one that's Chinese made, but if you look on eBay, they sell these, and you can tell the difference.
And I'm
Because
so,
this has got the heavy Bakelite handle on it, where the other one's got a little bolt-on handle.
Oh, really?
And you can tell
I'm
it's a
so
lot
tired
cheaper.
of it.
You can also tell by the weight. This one
Yeah.
weighs twice as much as the
Yeah,
Chinese.
I couldn't believe, when I'm using it as a water bath,
Yeah.
and it is heavy.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of Chinese made stuff, you know what I mean? I like American products, it's so much better.
But everything it seems like you pick up anymore is made in China.
Even
Yeah,
stuff
well,
you
that's
wouldn't
all-
expect, you know, like Carhartt, Carhartt company, that's Chinese stuff now, I mean,
Well, you know,
keys American made.
Your government does that by allowing stuff to come in without tariffs on it. So
Yep,
when they
right.
allow stuff to come in, that's how they destroyed the TV industry. We used to have a TV industry. They were all made here, and then they just allow all this stuff to come in. You know, we got the Sherman Act, which is supposed to
Right.
stop that. But they don't enforce the Sherman Act. It's a
no
law,
tariff, I mean-
it's on the books, they pass it, and they made a big deal about it, but then they don't enforce it, and that's the way your
You know, I
government does
love
things.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't enforce, it's just like, people come over the border, now they stop them, and you're illegal, but they can't arrest you. Even though you're in violation of federal law, they can't arrest you because if they call INS, they don't want them. They won't take them. So and they don't want to fill their jail up for nothing
Yeah.
when they can't convict them because it's a federal crime, not a state crime. So they won't arrest them even though they're in violation of federal law. You see?
That tariff deal, I mean, anyone that's crunching numbers,
Yeah.
is gonna send the stuff to China if they can get away with it.
Sure.
So,
And that was the idea, tear this country down, set China up, and then use China against us. And that's, people don't understand who runs this country, but it ain't us.
yeah, oh, no, I agree with that.
It ain't us.
Bakelite, I don't think you see a lot of Bakelite stuff anymore.
Not anymore. Used to, you had even kitchen, flatware had Bakelite handles.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember
All right,
that.
well, we don't have to watch this forever, but when we get to the end, then we'll just make another video. So this is 38 minutes, so this is part 2.
That's a lot, yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
That's a good video. So I think they got the picture. You just keep watching it and keep knocking it down until the little thing doesn't exhaust so much steam. Yeah. And then when you get the temperature right, then you just let it sit there. And we're gonna do 75 minutes on this one.
It's a cool old stove.
All right. That's the end of part 2.
You don't.